the GIM Channel podcast, bringing you the big picture on geoscientific information management through interviews and discussions.
Welcome to the GIM Channel. Our podcast series features guest speakers from the natural resources industries with an interest in digital technologies and geoscientific information management. If you're enjoying our podcast series, please leave some feedback through our podcast player or on Apple Podcast. We love to hear from our community.
Good morning, it's Stephen Alpers here. I'm your host for today. I'm here in Perth in Western Australia. Late last year, I was at the AusIMM Iron Ore Conference, and I was listening to a number of speakers talking about what the various companies are doing. One of the keynote speakers was Asmita Mahanta, and she was talking about data quantity, quality, and possibilities. And when I heard Asmita's talk, I thought, well, this is exactly what our podcast listeners would like to hear. And so here we are today, meeting with Asmita for the next edition of the GIM Channel podcast. So by way of introduction, Asmita Mahanta is the Manager of Technical Services and Data Integration at BHP WAIO, Western Australian Iron Ore. Asmita started with BHP in 1997 with BHP Minerals Exploration, exploring for base metals. She then joined BHP Technology with the Falcon team, doing the world's first airborne gravity gradiometer surveys. And since 2006, Asmita has been working with WAIO, leading technical teams, establishing technical standards, data quality standards, and processes, and implementing technologies to uplift productivity and unlock resource value. A notable achievement has been implementing the downhole assay tool in WAIO geoscience. Asmita's passion lies in leading teams of technical specialists, R&D strategy, innovation, pipeline generation, and data strategy for ore body characterization. She's also passionate about building a team and process capabilities and gender diversity for geoscience in the future. Asmita, welcome to Acquire's GIM Channel podcast.
Thank you, Stephen, and good morning. We've been talking about this for a while.
We have.
So
yes,
really
great.
Excited to be finally here.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm very pleased to have met you at the Iron Ore Conference last year, and could you please introduce yourself again and just tell us a little bit more about your role as the Manager of Technical Services and Data Integration at BHP?
Thanks. In my current role, I lead a team of technical specialists. It has database specialists, geophysicists, geologists, metallurgists, geometallurgists, technical geologists, and technical data analyst. So you can imagine our team works with data all day and every day.
Yeah.
So we ensure that right data is collected and at the right time. We ensure that data quality is fit for purpose, ensure data integrity, and the team also supports realizing full potential from all the available data. And we also provide another really important aspect of data, that's governance.
Yep, got it. Yep. Well, as a generalization, some would say that we are swimming in data across the mining value chain, not just at BHP, but across all of Acquire's customers. There is more information being captured than ever before, and data is coming from a wider variety of sources. Could you please give us your thoughts about if we are using data to its fullest potential across the mining value chain, and expand on that with why and why not?
You are absolutely right. And I really like the term that swimming in data, because we are actually swimming in data. We have sensors everywhere. If you go to a mine site, you'll see sensor across all mining processes. And technology has improved. I don't know whether you remember, but when I was young, I had a floppy disk that can store only 120.
Yeah, I do.
was it megabytes?
Yeah.
Yeah, 120 megabytes of data.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
just imagine how much data we can actually store. It just vastly improved. So we collect an enormous amount of data and we store an enormous amount of data. And some data is collected intentionally. We collect it for a specific reason, but a lot of data is just collected. They are there because they are byproduct of some of the mining processes and throughout the value chain.
Yeah.
So what happens is that in the second quality of the data, we're actually not sure what's the quality of the data. And hence, we're not actually sure how we can use the data. So the potential of the data remains unrealized.
Got it. So collecting data without necessarily having a clear plan for where it's going to go.
Exactly. And sometimes the data is the byproduct. We need that sensor to be there for some reason, but then a whole lot of other data is collected as well. So there is a huge potential there, which is yet to be realized to the full potential. And I don't think we even have actually scratched the surface of all the possibilities. I'll give you one very small example. In the blast hole rigs,
Yes.
almost all the blast hole rigs these days have some sort of MWD, measure while data sensors attached to it.
Yeah.
So if you think of it, we have got heaps of data coming from that. We have got rate of penetration, pull down pressure, rotation speed, torque, air pressure, and a whole lot of other parameters are measured. And this information, if you think, not only can make the drill rig operation more efficient and make the drill rig availability better through having a preventative maintenance regime, but it can also provide you a lot of geological information.
For sure.
So if you think of it, a well-calibrated MWD data, if we know the rate of penetration, we can talk about the hardness. We can get the hardness.
Got it.
So if you think of that, it's geological information and also input to subsequent other mining operations, a decision input. We can use that data set. And we have started using this data, but there are pockets of excellence. You can see a paper here and there, but it is still not an industry standard practice.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is just a tiny one small example. And there are thousands other all across the mining value chain. So I definitely think we are not using the data to its fullest potential. There is so much we can do. And I always talk about one dream I have. Just imagine you going up to a hill, anywhere in Pilbara, picking up a piece of iron ore and track it all the way from that hill to the port.
Right.
Or to the customer, even better.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, to be able to track it the whole way, the life cycle of that particular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, for the next deposit, you don't need to go and drill all over again because you have already learned how that little piece of rock is going to behave through the value chain and your customer's plant.
And the more you do it, the more you build up the picture.
Yeah, you build up your library of knowledge and you can actually use it to understand your next piece of rock better without having to do the same amount of work if we use our data smartly.
Got it. Well, how can companies determine whether they are collecting and using the right amount of data?
It's a little bit tricky question because we need to consider a few things to determine that we are collecting and using the right amount of data at the right time as well, and the right data. So I guess few criteria. Firstly, the criticality of the data. So are we collecting the right data in the first place? So it is important to understand why are we collecting it in the first place? How are we going to use the data? So what is the problem we are trying to solve? or the opportunity we are trying to explore here. So, and if we consider these questions, it will lead us to understand, are we collecting the right data? So, it's important to have the most relevant data to build a story. At the end of the day, you're going to use that data to tell a story, be it for your project or understand your model. And as we tell the story, when we see the gaps in the story, that will often lead us to get all the data we actually need to fill the gaps in our story.
Got it. That's a nice way of expressing it, using data to tell a story.
That's what we use our data, you know. Secondly is the volume. How much granularity our story needs, how much detail you need to tell to your audience, and who is your audience as well. So depending on the finer details that needs to be explored, the amount of data requirement will change as well. It will depend on the details we need. But there is always an optimal volume of data. And beyond that, value of more data kind of diminishes.
Got it.
And then the third aspect is the population or the data range. So volume of data becomes ineffective if we don't consider the range. So for example, if you want to talk about something about the whole population on the world, you can't just go and do your survey in one part of the world. You have to consider the range. So the breadth or the range of distribution is also a very important aspect to consider. So the criticality of the data, the volume, and the population, and a waterproof story will tell us whether we have the right amount of data or not. So the other thing is that we often think that a lot of measurement or data can reduce the uncertainty associated with the data, but there is always a limit. So when there is a diminishing return on the more data. So just having a large quantity of data is not going to counterbalance the effect of bad quality of data. So we got to remember that as well.
Yeah, got it. Good. Well, what are the key ingredients that companies need to think about to manage and use their data effectively?
As a user of data, and as someone who looks at data every day, the quality of the data underpins the value of the data. So anyone who uses data should be able to ensure the quality of data, should be able to say that this data, this is the quality of this particular data set. So there must be a criteria. Unless you have a criteria, you're not going to be able to talk about the quality and data validation process. But importantly, this is something we always make the mistake. We validate the data, and then if we leave the data in an Excel spreadsheet, we just kill that quality of the data. Because all data that's validated data or anything we collect must have a home. So where people can go and find the data, access the data easily. So the database and data storage, it is a very crucial step for good quality, reliable, and most importantly, sustainable data.
Okay. We're seeing to the converted here. We're on the same page.
But
for sure.
This is what the frustrating. We have people using data every day, but we still have to tell people the importance of having database and data storage.
Please don't keep your data in the Excel spreadsheet.
Exactly. And finally, the data access. Everybody should be able to access the data. It should be easy to access, and it should be able to be extracted by multiple stakeholders across different parts of the value chain. Unless we can do that, the true value of the data can never be realized.
Got it.
Being able to connect data at different parts of the value chain is really important.
From our point of view, we think about that in terms of dashboards and making data available to people in a format that they can readily access and get to.
Exactly. So, in summary, if we can establish chain of custody for our data, know where data is coming from, if we can demonstrate the accuracy and precision of our data. We have a database, one source of truth where we can access the data. I think we are in a reasonably good place.
Yeah, good. Well, what types of data do you believe are the most important? And at what stages of the mining value chain does this data sit?
Yeah. See, all data is important for the purpose they serve. I'm a geoscientist, I'm a geophysicist, so I am a bit partial and biased towards geoscience data. Because if you think of mining value chain, it actually starts with exploration and resource definition. It is all about resources in ground.
Yeah.
The geology, the structure, the ore body. And resources typically make up 60 to 90% of a company's business value.
Yeah.
And the remaining value we actually realize through our extraction process and obviously the market. So I believe we should put a lot of effort on getting the early deposit knowledge and ensure that we maximize the value across the value chain. Unless we do that well, we will always miss something.
It's all those original observations and measurements.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do companies ensure that they are maintaining data quality to feed the decision makers along the mining value chain?
I won't say that we all do it perfectly. We are still learning and getting better at it. But the first step is that we need to have a database. We need to have our data stored in a central location. We need to have a governance system. And it's all about system and processes to place that has to be in place to ensure the integrity of the data. And also, other equally important thing, which we often neglect, is the right capability in the business to support it.
Yeah. I always talk about people, process, and technology, and the most important component being the people.
Exactly.
They're the vast majority of the solution.
Yeah.
All right. So, thinking about where we're going, what do you see as future challenges to harnessing the power of data?
I always say the first challenge is to make sure that we have the right data, we have enough data and a good quality data. So the data integrity and the quality is non-negotiable before you go and try to do anything with your data.
Yep.
I think secondly, the requirement for an integrated and secure data platform, database, and the associated system where data can be seamlessly accessed by everyone and it can be integrated. And then the collaboration. And this is the thing I think we are still learning. At the end of the day, the problem we are trying to solve or the opportunity we are trying to create, and obviously it will depend on the dimension of the problem. How big is this problem? We need a lot of technical SMEs work together. So they need to have the domain knowledge, and the quality of that work will depend on how well people can collaborate, how well they can get each other's thoughts, each other's data, and work together to get to the solution. So the culture of collaboration, because we still have this culture of working as silos, so we must break that. And everybody must work together. Everybody that requires to solve that problem should be able to come together and work together with a team.
Yeah, you're talking about team leadership and bringing people together.
Yeah, the collaboration. If you have a small problem, you can probably lift it with your two hands and push it through. But if there is a big thing to move, you need lots of hands to push it.
Yeah, nicely said.
And then comes the communication.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we are telling a story. Data will never speak for itself. Someone got to pack it, put it together, and then tell the story to the stakeholders. And we often think that everybody can do that, but no, it is a skill. And more we move away from our traditional modeling and go into that world of, predictive analytics, neural data network, we need to be able to talk about it. We need to be able to tell our stakeholders and decision makers all aspects of the story. Otherwise, coming something from the black box, as a decision maker, people will be hesitant.
Yeah.
So that communication becomes even more important.
Yeah.
And then again, I keep saying that finally that building capability, and that kind of lies at the center. In order to fully harness the power of data, we need to be able to define the requirement of the data. We need to be able to understand the quality, and then we need to be able to bring everybody together to collaborate, and then present the solution.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the challenges that we have at the moment.
Got it. Wow. Thanks, Asmita. That's been a really interesting talk. It's just a very quick podcast that we've done today, and I feel that we've really only glimpsed the tip of all of the topics that we could be talking about, and perhaps we'll have to do more podcasts in the future. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. In closing statements, anything you'd like to talk to our podcast listeners about?
Everyone who's using data, make sure you understand the quality of the data, and look at your systems and processes, and keep doing the good work to harness the power of data, the possibilities it can bring.
Terrific. Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening to Acquire's podcast, The GIM Channel. Find us at acquire.com.au.